So first thing I wanted to talk about today is just short paper ones. And I got everybody your short paper ones back over the past week. Um, I am giving you an opportunity to revise it. So if you didn't do well on it your first time, or maybe you did okay, but you could do better, right? If you're in that boat, I am giving you the chance to revise it. I am going to ask for a date on the revision right before Thanksgiving break. So Friday the 19th will be the deadline to get a revision into me. Okay. After that, I have to cut it off. Otherwise, I'll be getting stuff in during finals week when I'm already crazy enough anyway. So the 19th, when I'm asking for it, let me I'll just pull up a random Word document and kind of show you all how I want you to do your revisions if you choose to do them. Just a moment. Turn that off. Word. So this is the prompt I'm going to cover today, but just to kind of give you an idea as far as how you revise your papers. Let's say that you do something major to the paper, like add some more content to it, or maybe you delete some content, right? Maybe you spend too much time summarizing in the paper rather than analyzing or something like that. If you add stuff or delete stuff, what I want you to do is on your word processor, you'll highlight over whatever it is, then you'll click review, add a comment. So I kind of want you to show me with the comment feature where you've changed stuff. So maybe you might say something like added a new thesis statement here. Or maybe added some more analysis here. Whatever the case is that you guys need to do, use the comment bubbles to show me the changes. I ask for the comment bubbles just because when I grade revisions, I don't like to have to read these things word for word over again just to kind of figure out what it is you changed. I figure the impetus is on you to prove that you've made changes. So if you make your changes in the paper, use the comment bubbles. Use them as almost like the signpost saying, okay, I've made some changes here. Here's where. So that's for the big content changes. If you just do something like fix a comma splice or a run-on or a typo or something like that, all you got to do for that is just highlight over your fix. So let's say you fix a comma right there, right? You would highlight it. And they wouldn't really need any further comment other because I'm understanding that the highlights are for your sentence level mistakes that you might have made. And the big comment bubbles are for maybe additions or subtractions on the content level. Okay. So if you need to do a revision, that's how you do it. Go over it pretty carefully. Go and read whatever endnote I wrote you. Like if I gave you a grade, but I said here's ways you can improve the paper. And then do your utmost to improve it. And I'll then, whenever I get your revisions in, I'll compare the two, see where you stand after you've done the revision. And it'll completely replace your original grade, right? Whatever you do with your revision. So, like I said, if you didn't do as well as you like the first time, you got an opportunity to make it better. So, this is a 102 class, right? This should be a class about learning how to get better rather than showing you what you're doing wrong. It should be a class on how to get better, right? So, hopefully, if you didn't get your A the first time, I can be pretty rough the first time. I could be rougher, but I tend to be a little bit more critical the first time because I want you guys to keep improving. Okay. So you guys got questions for me on how to do a revision, anything of that nature, before we get started talking the big assignment?
If we do the revision, would that cancel out our already grade that we have now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll make you this promise. If you do a revision, you can't do worse than you did the first time. Okay. So your grade won't go down any yet. Right. So, but yeah, it should go up. It would completely replace whatever the original grade is. And I assure you, it won't go down any. Your original grade's at least locked in, right? So, other questions? I'm pretty sure that I've posted the Dropbox for it already. Let me see here. Show you the Blackboard page real quick. Yeah, under submit essays here on our Blackboard page, I've already posted the Dropbox for short paper 1 revision. I say here it's due the 19th of November. So remember, your short paper 2 is going to be coming up next week. The prompts on Dracula or Frankenstein. So that'll be coming up next week. But the week after that, you'll have your revision to do if you choose to do it. Okay. You guys can't see this stuff yet because I haven't enabled it yet, in case you're wondering. Here's that format. Let's say that I wrote format your paper correctly. Here's this format that you can download where you can format your paper correctly if you're having that problem. Okay. So any other questions, anything I can answer? Everybody had different problems. Oftentimes, whenever you run into problems with a literature paper, most of the time they start out with maybe your thesis statement's a little weak. So directly answer whatever prompt it is I gave you. So take an argumentative stance early with your thesis statements. But then when you get to the paragraph level, remember your burger paragraphs. I called them burger paragraphs. It's kind of a silly metaphor. The top bun of the burger is your topic sentence, which refers back to your thesis. Right? Your evidence is your meat, and that's quoting the text. Right? If you don't anchor yourself in the text, you're not providing evidence for whatever argument it is you're making. So you always kind of have to anchor yourself in the text. If you go the whole paper and never quote from the text, right, that can be problematic. So your evidence is the text. With that said, you don't want to spend your whole paper quoting from the text, right? You kind of want to abridge your quotes. Most of the time, you want to keep them 3 lines or less, right? If I don't want to read a whole paper full of quotes, right? Otherwise, there's none of your own writing in there. So then you never want to let a quote speak for itself. Right? You always want to drive home whatever point it is you're making with your quotes. So don't ever, it's always a good advice. Don't ever end a paragraph or don't ever end a section of a paper with a quote. Right? You always want to explain yourself. You always kind of want to hammer it home to the reader, whatever point it is you're trying to make. So there's that as well. For the most part, the class did pretty good. There was pretty much an even number of A's, B's, and C's. I don't think anybody got an F or anything. So pretty much an even number of A's, B's, C's. So if you already have an A, you don't have to worry about revising anymore. Okay. So, but if you have a B or C, go for it. So any other questions, or maybe there's something I might have said in the paper that you were confused about, or anything of that nature I can answer? All right, well, I was pleased with them overall. So you guys are doing some good work. So if you need to revise, the opportunity is there. So now let's cover the big project we have coming up. Today, I just kind of want to dip your toes in, introduce you to what's coming ahead. Okay, and nothing's going to be due anytime soon. We're going to start to really dive into specifics next week. Today is kind of the toe dipping day, dipping your toes into the waters of what's ahead, so to speak. After next week, we won't be doing any more reading. Right? After next week, it's all serious business from there as far as discussing writing. Unfortunately, right? That's the not fun part of the course for everyone. But the important part of the course. So what's coming ahead then? Your research topic. All right, this will be worth 50% of your grade in total. 50%. 35% will be the actual paper. 15% will be the bibliography leading up to the paper. So the paper, this big project at the end of the class, is going to be divided up into 2 stages in that way. Okay. And in a nutshell, you're going to take one or maybe a couple of our texts that we've done, and you're going to write a researched, persuasive argument about about some of these texts. One that anticipates opposing views and responds to them fairly. So I say here, the goal is to take one of the literary schools. So we've been approaching this literature from all kinds of different angles all semester. Right? So your job here is to kind of take one of these angles and use it as a lens for looking at one of these novels or stories we've done. So you could do some psychoanalysis, like if you're interested in stuff like psychology. Right? A psychoanalytic study would be something like nature versus nurture in Frankenstein, for instance. You could do a formal study. A formal study is when you look at literature for using these literature terms, right? So you could do an analysis of setting or foreshadowing or imagery or personification or illusions or whatever, all those different literary terms. That's when you do a formal study. That type of study is not really done a lot anymore. However, formal studies are part of all the other ones too, because you always have to talk about the text, no matter what type of study you do. But you could do an influence study, so what influence did one author have on another? You could do some feminist criticism. We've done a lot of that in this class with stuff like yellow wallpaper. Yeah, we're definitely going to be talking about The Haunting of Hill House from a feminist lens a little bit. Historical criticism, right? So you can look at literature through the lens of history. So for each one of these texts, we've talked about stuff like that. Well, for instance, when we talked about Dracula, right? We talked about British imperialism and things like that. You can do it from a class or Marxist criticism. Whenever we talk about Marxist criticism, you're mostly looking at literature through the lens of social class. So I'm trying to think of an example here. Like, for instance, maybe like in Dracula, like whenever they talked about like the Romanian people, right? That's kind of looking at different people through a class lens or a racial lens. So basically, the main crux of this is you're going to make an argument about one of these texts. Hopefully it's something fairly original. Right? Hopefully it's something that not many other people have done before. If it is something that someone's done before, right, what can you add on to the conversation? Whenever we talk about literature, there's a long history of dialogue about all these texts we've done. There's pretty much everything we've read in this class is classic stuff. Haunting a Hill House is probably the most under talked about thing that we've read in here. Everything else, Poe, Hawthorne, Yellow Wallpaper, Southern Gothic, Dracula, Frankenstein, all this stuff has a very rich history of scholarship. So your goal even is to kind of read through some of the scholarship and then maybe see if you can find your original place in that scholarship. As original as you can get it, right? Usually if you have a completely original paper, right, that's usually when you get to like the publishing range. I don't expect anyone to publish, right, in a 102 course, but get as close as you can, right? You never know. Like if you come up with something very original, you can maybe do something like present it at a conference or something. Right? So I have high ambitions for all of you. You're not just writing a paper just for the sake of writing one, right? Maybe you would choose to do something with it. So I have high expectations for all of you because I know all of you are very smart and capable people. Right? You guys are my #1 class this semester, after all, right? So that's basically what you're going to do. So whichever text it is you gravitated to, whichever text you found most interesting, maybe in our conversations we've had, gravitate to it. Maybe you said something in one of our classes. Maybe one of our lines of dialogue interested you about any of these things. I know it's tough to kind of go back and think on the last 2 months. I mean, class has been going on for 2 months already, thinking about like all the stuff we've read, but definitely gravitate to what you find interesting. You could also do something like an adaptation, right? So you don't have to just do the novels or the stories. You can do adaptations too. So let's say you wanted to write about the Haunting of Hill House Netflix series. I mean, as long as you're making some type of argument about it, great. Or the Dracula Netflix series, or whatever version of whichever text. like if you want to even do something like that, that'll be an option for everyone. So I'm pretty much saying write about anything you want, as long as it's about any of the stuff we've read, as long as it pertains to the stuff we've read. So as it says here, think back to the class discussions and debates we've had. Pick a text or group of closely related texts that has interested you. Then read over the scholarly conversation going on about the items. So part one of this thing, part one, I'm going to go more in detail about this next week. Over the next week, I invite you guys to maybe start thinking about what it is you might want to do. But part one will be the bibliography stage of the paper. You guys might have done something like this in English 101. I didn't have any of you who are with me right now on English 101, so I don't know what some of my colleagues might have done in that course. But before you did your research papers in 101, you're supposed to maybe do something like a little bibliography, where you sort of look up sources on your paper, summarize the sources, annotate them. I don't know if you guys did anything like that leading up to your research papers in 101. Any of you guys want to say anything about that? Like, did you guys do anything like that in 101? Years 101 too long ago to remember.
I did that, but that was in my senior year of high school before COVID.
That was a generation ago. It feels like the pre-COVID age, right?
Yeah.
So, well, I mean, if you guys didn't do anything like that in 101, sometimes a teacher just says, write a research paper. And then what do? You read the research a day before the papers due. You just kind of plug it in, right? That's what a lot of people do. I have you do this in chunks to make sure that you do your research ahead of time before the paper. Okay, so an annotated bibliography is as such. You're going to find articles about your subjects, articles that are written by scholars. Southern doesn't have the best databases when it comes to English research. It's something I've been working on. I've been pestering them to get better ones. Currently, we still don't have the ones that I want, but I'm working on it. But as far as this semester goes, you guys probably aren't going to have the best databases. But I will show you the ones we do have next week. And I can also schedule meetings with each of you if you want as well, because I still have access to some databases from WVU when I was a graduate student there. So they have everything. So you run some searches yourself, and if you run into a roadblock, hit me up and I can probably help break you out of whatever roadblock it is. But that's part one, the bibliography. Just to show you kind of what a bibliography looks like on this prompt. On a bibliography, you have a citation of a source, And you guys definitely should have practiced this in 101. But I'm not going to assume anything, and I'm going to teach you how to do it again very soon. But in a nutshell, you'll have a citation of a source, and then you'll kind of have a summary of an analysis of the source to follow it. So you basically want to say, well, what's this article saying about the yellow wallpaper? Or what's this article saying about Dracula? How do you think this will pertain to your argument that you plan to make? So you basically just read over the stuff, you summarize it, you briefly analyze, like, how do you think this article might be useful to you with your own interpretation of Dracula or Frankenstein or whatever you choose to do. So how many sources am I asking for? I don't think I put a number on this one. I will next week though.
5. It was 3 paragraphs up.
What is it?
It says at least 5, and it was a few paragraphs up.
At least 5. Yeah, at least 5. Yeah, that's a pretty low number, but at least 5. So you can have maybe 6 or 7 if you want, but at least 5. So you don't want to have stuff that's just, you don't want to have this completely random stuff in here. You want to focus your searches as much as you can. So let's say you want to talk about sexuality in Dracula. All right, well, maybe you probably wouldn't have something like, I don't know, colonial stuff in there in your bibliography, right? If you're talking about sexuality, right? So you kind of want to make sure all your sources are kind of related as far as like whatever they're talking about regarding your text. So you don't want to just have completely random stuff in here. I am going to mostly ask for all academic sources though. I will leave a little bit of room for stuff you might find on Google or something. Maybe you will find, maybe there's a good review of something or a decent analysis. I am going to leave you a little bit of room for Google. Most of the stuff on this bibliography will be academic. Just to kind of tell you guys the difference between an academic source and a non-academic source. An academic source, it's really hard to get published in an academic journal. So like the way that pretty much all knowledge works, not just in English, but in history or sociology or whatever, there's these journals that publish new and original work. So in English studies, new and original work is often like new interpretations of a text. So in order to get even published in these things, you have to have something completely new, and it goes through a process what's called blind peer review. So you take your name off of the article when you submit it. That way that there's no bias involved. Experts in the field. So like, let's say that you're submitting to the Journal of Literature and Medicine. Well, experts in the field are part of that journal's editorial team, and then they'll kind of read over the submission and they'll be like, okay, this is a new and original take on Frankenstein, for instance. Let's publish it. Or most of the time they're like, no, this has problems. We're not going to publish it. So to even get in one of these things, like some of the best journals, they have like a 1 in 100 acceptance rate. It takes something completely spectacular to get into these things. Whenever you find a peer-reviewed academic source, most of the time it's gone through intense scrutiny to even be able to be published. So keep that in mind. I mean, whereas something that you find on Google or something, like anybody can just randomly post something on the internet. That's not to say that some of the stuff you find might not be good, but it doesn't have to go through that scrutiny. So I don't know if anybody's ever explained the difference between academic sources and not academic sources to you before, but there you go. That's the difference. Okay. So more on this next week, because next week I want to show you all around the databases a little bit, show you how to find these things. Okay, so more on that next week when we finish up Hill House too. One thing I say here, remember I showed you an annotation, what an annotation looks like. I'm going to practice citations with you too sometime over the next couple of weeks, but you never want to use those citation generators, maybe from a site like EasyBib, or even doing it on Microsoft Word or something. Most of the time they'll mess you up. You want to make sure you do your citations manually. So I will be showing you how to do that as well sometime over the next week or two. And I'll show you how to do it in both MLA and APA style. I understand that English studies are really the only people who use MLA style. All these other weirdos out here use APA style, right? So I'll show you how to do both. APA style, you don't want to get me going on how awful it is, in my opinion. You don't want to get me started on that. I've never had to write in it myself, thank the heavens. But so the way the deadlines that we're going to have coming up here at the end of the month after Thanksgiving break, 26th of November, that'll be when your bibliography and proposal are due. I didn't mention proposals a minute ago, but a proposal is pretty much like a one-page preview of what your argument's going to be. So like, what argument do you think you're going to make about your text? What evidence do you plan to use for your text? It's pretty much just a one-page quick summary of what it's exactly as it says. It's a proposal. You're proposing that you're going to make this argument about this text using this evidence. In this prompt I gave you, I actually gave you a proposal that someone's written for me before in a similar class to this. We did some movies in that class. This person did a proposal on the movie The Babadook. Really good movie, really good horror film. So in a nutshell, that's what a proposal is. Rough. This person kind of overkilled it a little bit, but it's pretty much a one-page summary of what a preview, so to speak, of what it is you're going to argue. So part one of this project is going to be a proposal combined with your bibliography. As I said, that'll be worth 15% of the overall grade. Okay. After the proposal, at that point, after you've written a proposal, you will have already done all the research that you need to do. So after the proposal, that's when you're getting into the drafting of the paper stage. When you get to that stage, you want to, when we get to that stage, it's all going to come fairly quick. And you'll mostly be drafting this thing during the last week of class, right before finals. So, or you could always get an early start if you like to do things early. But we're going to be writing your main argument, that week. And as I said before, this can be an extension of one of your 2 short papers you've done. So you can choose to make it a longer paper based on one of the short papers you've done, except now you'll add research and things like that into it. Or you can do something completely new. But either way, that last week you're going to be writing a longer paper. This will be definitely the longest thing you've written in here. It'll be about a 6 to 7 page argument. That'll be kind of what I'm expecting. 6 to 7 pages is usually the standard, because the reason for that, 6 to 7 pages, that is something like you would do at a conference, for instance. Like if you were reading a paper at a conference, 6 to 7 pages is what you could reasonably read in about 15 minutes. So that's kind of the baseline here. I'm going to be asking for a draft of that when it comes closer. So our very last, do I have my dates right here? No, it's not Friday, it's Wednesday the 1st. So the very first draft of this thing will be due on our last Zoom session. And that'll be Friday the 1st. So in this last Zoom session, what we'll be doing, here's what I propose we do in our last Zoom session. We can either kind of do where you read everyone's papers before class, and then we can kind of come to class together and discuss them. Or we can even do like a reading of your paper in class and then discuss them kind of on the spot. So we can do it either way. But either way we go, we're going to come to class on the last day, and we're going to kind of have a seminar-like discussion on everyone's papers, on everyone's draft. So we'll even give you advice on, the whole class will pitch in, right? We'll give advice on, this is good, and here's how you can improve it. All right, maybe here's something extra to think about. So we're going to have a discussion of your paper in class last week, where everybody will read each other's papers. Okay, so that'll be what our very last class session will be. And yeah, so I will expect everyone who's been doing the Zooms to come for that, because you'll get the most out of it if you do that. I don't think you'll get as much. I mean, I have an alternative for the people in class who don't come to the Zooms, but frankly, I don't think people are honest on those discussion boards as much as they are in person. Right? Lots of times on those discussion boards, people will just kiss each other's ass. Right? I mean, that's pretty much what happens. This is the greatest thing I've ever read in my life. It changed my whole way of thinking. Right? I will never be the same again. Right? Your point about how the sky's gray and Frankenstein, right? That blew my mind. Right. You guys know how those discussion boards are in online classes. You'll get more out of it coming to the Zoom. And we're all honest and comfortable with each other in here. We all know each other pretty well at this point. So you guys know you'll all get good feedback that day. Your first draft will be the last day. And then I'll give you, let's see, messed up my dates here. Let me double check. Yeah, Monday the 6th will be the day that things actually due. And that'll be the first Monday of finals week. So after our last Zoom session, you'll have that whole long weekend to fix up whatever it is you needed to work on and whatever it is we talked about. So all in all, to summarize, you're going to have about a 6 to 7 page paper at the end. When you need to Monday, December 6th. You're going to do it in MLE style. And you'll also have a bibliography plus proposal. And that is due, as I said, on the 26th of November. So that was a lot to think about there. But any questions, comments, concerns, anything I can address? Maybe some of you all might have an idea in mind already. Anything at all that you guys want to talk about regarding this thing? Like I said, I mostly just wanted to dip your toes in the waters today to get you started thinking about it. But anything on your minds?
I was looking for a PDF of the Silver Key by H.P. Lovecraft, and I haven't been able to find one. So if you could find a PDF of that, that would go a long way.
Yeah, I'll write that down. That's that way I won't forget, Jacob. Silver Key. Maybe I have it in one of my books too. I could always scan a copy if I do. You know, I'll look for you, Jacob.
All right, thank you.
Well, yeah, feel free to use me as a resource, right? That's what I'm here for. Like I said, I have access to a bunch of sources you guys won't have. I can pretty much request anything that you guys might need, and it'll come in. So anything you guys need to do this thing, I can probably get for you. So just remember that. All you got to do is ask. All right. Anything else? All